What's up everyone, Criddle here, and I want to talk about modding weapons in the First Descendant. But before I do that, I would like to let you know that I do mostly stream over on Twitch. That's where I do most of my content creation, but I'm trying to add in more stuff on YouTube. So if you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, follow, comment, come let me know so I can know what kind of content you all want to make more of it. With that said, we're going to be talking about modding. And just like in Full Metal Jacket, they said, this is my rifle, and there are many like him, this one is mine, whatever they said. And that holds true for the First Descendant as well. So in modded weapons, you're going to be able to mod it to your liking. So the first thing that we want to take a look at, though, are the differences and where we can get some of those numbers so we can see, you know, how much we're modding it and how much that is affecting our weapon. So if you look right here on my tamer, this is the base DPS of the weapon. But if we go into our modded area here, you can see that my DPS goes up more than double, and that's because the mods are taking into effect here. So you do want to make sure that you're looking at the correct DPS number when you are checking out to see if these weapons are good or if they're modded up and what the damage that they're going to do. Now, these DPS numbers don't mean a whole lot, but they are a good indication of how much damage you're going to be doing per second on any individual fight. So that is that. The next thing you want to take a look at is that you do have 3 different mod settings, and you can also buy more right here if you want to. But the 3 different mod settings that you can do, you can set them up to have different types of elements. You can set it for boss fights, set it up for dungeon fights, whatever you want to do, and have 3 different sets for an individual weapon so that you can use it in different ways and you don't have to constantly take mods out and put mods back in. It's just a little quality of life thing. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the details section. This is where you're going to find out the strengths and weaknesses of your particular weapon. So we're going to look at this one right here. If you see right here, it says press F1 for details. I'm not sure what it is on controller, but you should have the same details button on your controller. So you can hit F1 and come into here, and this gives you the base weapon damage and base stats of your weapon. You can see here that some of these have the 13.6 increase for crit rate and crit damage, those kind of things. If they have that, that means you're getting that as a weapon option. Those weapon options are right here in the gold and purple that you can see right up here. So I have bonus fire attack damage versus Colossus. I have fire attack damage, crit damage, and crit rate. That's where those bonuses are coming from this screen. So this is only going to give you the base of the weapon. So from here, you want to find out what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are of the weapon, and you want to work around those with your mods. Also, if you are using a unique weapon, you can check out the unique weapon ability right up here and make sure that you are building on the strengths of that as well, because that's going to make a difference in how you build your particular weapon. So all of that said, let's go take a look at the tamer. This one right here has a 17,000 base attack rate. This is at level 100. You can see these at whatever level your weapon is, but this is going to tell you at that particular level. So if it's a higher firearm rate, you may, or fire attack rate, you may want to add in things that give you more firearm attack, because those are going to benefit you more. Because it says, for example, on this one right here, firearm attack plus 32%, it's going to take that 17,000 and add 32% to it. But if I were to take this exact same mod that's got 32%, and let's say we put it into the Thunder Cage here, and it should be right down here somewhere, 32%, it's going to add the same 32%. However, it won't add as much damage because this particular weapon, if you look at the details screen, only has 12,392 damage for its firearm attack versus the tamer, which has 17,000. So the tamer is going to benefit more from firearm attack than the Thunder Cage, just as an example. However, if you look at something like the crit rate on here, the base crit rate of this firearm is 10. We're adding in 13.6%, so it's adding in 13% of the base. So that's why we're getting that extra 1.36%. That's where that comes from. So this is only 11.36% crit rate. And then we have crit damage of the base is 2 times, or I believe it's 2 times. Actually, I don't even know if it's 2 times. The base is whatever it is, plus 38%. But if we go down here to the Thunder Cage, you can see that it's a 20% crit rate with 2 times damage. So you want to factor that in, and this one's going to benefit more from having higher crit rate percentage added to it and higher crit damage because you're going to be getting more of those crit attacks at 2 times damage. So you want to make sure that you mod your weapon based on its strengths and its weaknesses. Another thing that you could look at is the fire rate. This is a 666 fire rate versus this one, which is a 624 fire rate. So the fire rate mod would benefit the Thunder Cage a little bit more than it would the Tamer. But if you look at something like a sniper rifle, the fire rate is not going to really benefit you that much at all, because if you add in a percentage of 66, it's going to be way less than if you add in a percentage of the 666. If that makes sense, hopefully it does. So that's what you want to be looking at on the strengths and weaknesses of your different weapons to tell you what mods to put in. So now that we know what mods to put in, we would go back to this screen and you want to add those things in. So buff the strengths of your weapon and kind of ignore some of the weaknesses, or try to just get those weaknesses to where you want them to be so that they work for you. This is an example of that. So the firearm, this adds firearm attack, which is very good on the Tamer, for example, because we saw that it had a higher firearm attack than other weapons of a similar type, but it does add recoil. So if you can control the weapon, as long as you can continue to control the weapon at this higher firearm attack, then you want to go ahead and add this action and reaction in. But if you are having trouble controlling the weapon, the recoil is already too high for you, this is only going to make it worse. So you may want to take that mod out and keep that recoil down, and then add in different mods to make that work for you. So that's how that works. Same thing with the toxic and enchantment or enhancements. I keep saying enchantment. For the toxic enhancements, and fire enhancement, those kind of things, these are based on your firearm attack. So if you have a lower firearm attack, these are not going to benefit you as much, because it adds 30% at max level or whatever. It adds 30% of your firearm attack as toxic damage. So you want to have something with much higher firearm attack than a lower firearm attack. But usually what that means is if it's a higher firearm attack, it's probably going to be a lower fire rate. And if it's a higher fire rate, it's going to be a lower firearm attack. So you have to kind of balance those two things and figure out which works best for you. So now that we know which mods to use, or hopefully we can figure out which mods to use based on the stats of the weapon, how do we add more mods? Well, first you're going to level up your weapon. So if you look right here, you can see that my proficiency on this weapon is 40, which is the max of that weapon. And each time you go up in proficiency, it adds a little bit more capacity. Down here, I only have a proficiency of 5, so this one's not going to have nearly as much capacity. And we can see that if we go right in here, you can see that it has a current capacity of 48, whereas my Tamer has a current capacity of 80. So some of that comes from leveling it up through the proficiency, and some of that comes from these additional mod settings right here. If you click on that, you can go max capacity up, and this will add 30 to your mod capacity. I can't do that with this weapon because I've already done it, but if we go over here to the Thunder Cage and you click the same thing, you can see that using an energy activator, and this tells you how to craft that, using an energy activator takes it up from a max cap of 50 up to 80. So this will increase it by 30, that you can put more mods in, which is going to exponentially increase your damage, as you can see from the original damage numbers here, and then you see the modded damage numbers here, because I'm using 78 out of my 80 in mod capacity. The other thing that you want to know about is these mod assignment slots. So you can use these crystallization catalysts. These allow you to put any of these different types of mod sockets into your weapon, or it allows you to clear it too. So let's say you have this one right here and you don't want to have that, you can clear it so it has nothing. And I'm going to go over exactly what that does for your weapon here in just a second, but you can clear it so that you have nothing in there, but it does cost a crystallization catalyst. So make sure that you want to remove them or add them before you do that, because these are not easy to get. They're a little bit easier than trying to get these energy activators, but they are still time consuming to try to go and farm, and they do cost a lot of money to make and time to build. So what do those do? Well, let's go over here to this setting here so we can show you. the different settings or different symbols here are going to match up to your various symbols here at the top. So if you want to see a specific symbol, you can go and choose it from here. We're going to use this one as an example. So we're going to click on that, and we can see here that we have something like the toxic enhancement. So if we put it here, it's going to cost, or it's going to give us 16 capacity. And if we put it over here, it's going to cut that capacity in half. So it takes from 16 down to 8. Now, another thing you might want to know is it does round up from this. So for example, if we were to take something that is 15 capacity, like this one right here, and we try to put it in this, it's still going to round it to 8 because it's going to round it up. So it's going to divide it in 2 and then round it up for anything. So make sure you look at that. It's going to make a difference. So I would make sure that you have these on even numbers if you can, and then put them into your mod slots. Now, what does that do if you put the wrong thing in, or the wrong mod in the wrong slot? It's going to increase it by 33%. Again, this time though, rounding down. So another thing that you could factor that in, let's say this one is 16, you put it in here, it's going to add 5 into it because it's 33% of the 16, it's going to add into it. But if you put this 15 in here, it's going to do the same thing, and it's going to add 5. But let's say we take a 14, which I don't see a 14, so let me see if I can find a 14. I don't know if we have one that's got 14. But anyway, there's one that's 14. So we take that one. I don't want to put it in here because it's going to cut it in half. But if we put it right up here, you can see that it adds 4 to that. So it takes the 14 divided by 3 or whatever, so 33% of it, and it rounds it down. So you want to put in, if you have to put in one of these in the wrong mod slot, you want to make that as high as possible to where it's not divisible by 3. So in this case, 14 is not divisible by 3 evenly, so you could put that in there and it's only going to add 4. If you make it 15, it'll add 5. But if you take it and put it on one of these, it does cut it in half. And that's how you're going to get a lot of mods on these different weapons. So eventually you're going to be able to put all the mods on there that you want, pretty much. But in the beginning, you're going to want to be very careful and make sure you put on the mods that are going to benefit your weapon the most. In this case, it's going to be things that add in firearm attack. Those are probably some of the best. I would also recommend adding things like weak point damage. Very, very good one to add for pretty much any weapon, but you can see the weak point damage on this gun right here. Weak point damage is only ×1, so it doesn't do more for weak point damage. So it's not going to really help that much. But if you put in the fire crit rate or crit damage, it starts at a higher amount and then it just goes up from there. So that is basically how that works. Hopefully that helps out. If it does, please like, subscribe, follow, come over, ask me any questions, out in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.